On this week's NFV SDN Reality Check, we will look back at some of the top news over the past week, as well as talk with Level 3 about some of the work it's doing with NFV and SDN with its own network.
Today's episode is brought to you by Telecom Careers, the #1 global telecom and wireless job board, telecomcareers.net.
Thanks for joining us on this week's NFV SDN Reality Check. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief here at RCR Wireless News. Well, let's look at some of the big news from the past week. CenturyLink this week signed a deal with Alcatel-Lucent's Nuage networks to provide the operator with networking functionality for its programmable services backbone network architecture. CenturyLink said its PSB architecture is an open software-enabled platform for delivering the dedicated services using NFV technology to its enterprise customers. CenturyLink said the architecture uses NFV to place applications and services closer to the network edge to allow for quicker deployment, modifications, and scalability. Nuage claims its virtualization platform will allow CenturyLink to offer cloud control by unifying virtualized services in a single entity. The ability to detect, debug, and resolve problems through a real-time inventory of virtual services, physical connectivity and the correlation between the issues, and through micro-segmentation capabilities allowing for protection against security breaches. Also this week, Ericsson and Cisco Systems announced a global partnership tying together their platforms to target telecom operators and reportedly produce at least $1 billion in incremental revenue opportunities for each company beginning in 2018. The partnership is set to offer a platform including routing, data center, networking, cloud, mobility, management, and control, and tap their respective global footprints to create what they are calling the network of the future. The company said the network support is to include 5G, cloud, IP, and the Internet of Things, and that Ericsson and Cisco will provide teams to jointly work on an initiative targeting SDN, NFV, and network management and control. Financially, Cisco and Ericsson said they expect to generate the incremental revenue beginning in 2016, ramping to the more than $1 billion each in 2018. For Ericsson, some of the revenue will come from licensing fees it generates from Cisco. Well, I recently had a chance to speak with Level 3 to gain some insight into how the company is looking to use NFV and SDN to bolster the robustness of websites and applications. While Level 3 is probably best known for its backhaul and fiber services, the company has been working with virtualization platforms to enable greater agility and customization for its services offerings to customers. Let's take a look at the interview now. This week we are joined by Adam Sanger, who's the VP of Product Development and Management at Level 3. Hey, Adam, thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Thank you.
Great. Well, maybe let's start off with an overview. Obviously, I'm sure most of our viewers have heard of Level 3, probably know a little bit about the company, but maybe give a little overview of the company itself, and then maybe how you guys participate in this world of NFV and SDN and virtualization as well.
Absolutely. So Level 3 builds, operates, and maintains a comprehensive global network providing services to enterprises, carriers, and government entities really across the globe. We have a comprehensive portfolio of voice, video, data, security, and unified communication solutions. We provide services to over 500 markets in 60 countries across 3 continents. We look to deliver on our vision, which is to be the trusted connection to the network world. As far as our participation in SDN, we really see ourselves as leaders in this space and have been providing services leveraging SDN capabilities for the past couple of years. Look forward to talking in further detail today of how we're leveraging SDN not only to support and optimize the customer experience internally to Level 3, but for our customers as well.
Yeah, maybe start off with that point, because again, you guys, it does sound like you guys are using SDN, not just internally, but also for your customers as well. I guess maybe talk a bit about maybe what you've seen in terms of the market, how you view the market today, and then maybe how you guys are indeed using kind of SDN, both internally and externally for your operations there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I would say this is one of the differentiators for Level 3 communications is that as we approached the marketplace, we took really a twofold look at what we wanted to do. Historically and traditionally within the carrier space, it's looked at as an internalization or internal opportunity to improve the operational efficiency of the organization. And while that is critical, and we leverage those capabilities essentially to get hands off the network, we've also, and most prominently, taken a customer lens at it to answer the question of how would customers leverage this capability to improve their business standards, the way they operate. Increasingly, the enterprise, governments, and carriers, quite frankly, are tasked with an acceleration of IT demands on their business. They're looking for ways to monetize those demands. And level 3 is using SDN as a means to do that.
Got it. And obviously, it does seem like, at least in the telecom space, which we focus on mostly here, again, it does seem like, the demands being put on these operators has just grown so much. It seems like, that hockey stick curve, or whatever you want to say. I mean, it just seems like, whether consumer demand for video services or OTT competition and things like that. I mean, it seems like operators are being just kind of pushed really to kind of really make their networks more efficient, optimize as much as they can. It does seem like this kind of move towards software is a way to do that. I guess it sounds like you guys are seeing a lot of that as well. I mean, across enterprise spaces, the government space as well. It just seems like that these demands are just growing and growing, and obviously, whatever you can do to help these guys seems like that's kind of what they're asking for as well.
That's right. Yeah, the acceleration and the complexity that has manifested itself within the enterprise has certainly made its way into the service provider space, and leveraging those capabilities. So if we start with the operational capability and how one would internalize it, really it keys into getting hands off the network. So it's this control layer that carriers, quite frankly, have a challenge, and that is managing across service endpoints, across technologies, across solutions. And the service provider that can implement that and do so in an automated fashion will ultimately be able to be more in tune with the IT, the growth and complexity of the IT enterprise.
Yeah. I guess, how are you viewing the adoption of these services? I mean, like you said, I mean, operators are really being challenged by this, and it is something new for them. And a lot of these telecom operators are legacy companies that have this history of a lot of hardware, and they're used to big boxes and really kind of specialized equipment that way. I guess, how do you view the adoption of these platforms into these operations? Are you seeing some pretty good adoption there, or is there still these challenges that these operators are trying to, I guess, get over at this point to kind of bring these things inside like that?
Yeah, so there's two questions there. One is the how do you make this happen, and the second one is, what does the adoption look like? So level 3 has employed a strategy, our pursuit of one network, one systems ecosystem, one portfolio of services. And because it all starts with the foundational component of the network, we are employing a standard architecture across the globe. That will be controlled by the central control plane or control systems that allow us to provide, or collect data off the network, analyze that data, and give an actionable presentation of that data to the end user. So it starts with the concept of one network, one system ecosystem, one portfolio. We are deploying these assets. We've completed our deployment across North America. We'll continue to look for opportunities to expand in North America. We have this adaptive network control as our portfolio, and I'll talk about what specifically that means here in a moment.
Sure.
Across the US and Canada, we're in the process of deploying those capabilities to EMEA, with future pursuits into Latin America and Asia Pacific as well. The second part of your question is around adoption and demand. Probably one of the most rewarding aspects of my job and what we've done at level 3 is understanding the customer use cases and the excitement that you see in the business, the decision makers of the enterprise, because they're looking for their own application of how can they leverage SDN. So adoption is strong. I would say it's early, strong. The use cases continue to grow.
Yeah. Maybe talk a bit about those use cases. I know, when we were discussing this conversation originally a couple weeks ago, there was, you guys kind of brought up, or someone there at the level 3 team kind of brought up the issue with, obviously recently tickets were put on sale for a movie coming out in December, a very popular movie. And, this kind of issue, a lot of the ticket brokers out there had some issues with trying to handle the load of all these people trying to buy tickets for the movie. I guess that was kind of brought up as, a way to, what you guys can bring to the table to kind of help these organizations kind of handle that kind of a dynamic loading that kind of happens to a network where, you get this big load all of a sudden, and then, a couple of days later, it's probably not there anymore. I guess maybe talk a bit about, use cases, in terms of that, and how you guys kind of help out operators or even enterprises in kind of dealing with that.
Sure. So if I might, I'll start with the foundation of what is the offer, and then I'll translate that into the customer use case. So adaptive network control is the SDN implementation within level 3 that we've made customer facing. Adaptive network control solutions are comprised of 2 components today, and we're going to continue to expand that portfolio. But those 2 primary components are enhanced management, which provides the advanced analytics for customers and users to see what's going on in the network. Historically, service providers have averaged metrics end to end. And while that's useful to understand how a packet or an application is transmitted across a network from loc A to loc B, you need to provide the level of granularity to make that data actionable. And so enhanced management does that. It provides a look into the performance, latency, packet delivery, loss, jitter, and bandwidth utilization. And it combines those metrics so that the user can identify by location or even by class of service where there may be a performance or an overutilization going on within their network. From that, they can leverage the second capability, which is dynamic capacity. Dynamic capacity allows the user to make adjustments on the fly within seconds without service interruption, or scheduled in advance. Or even based upon the analytics that the customers deems as important or critical performance thresholds or utilization thresholds, above which they may see a deterioration in the quality of service. The network will automatically adjust. So take those 2 service offerings and translate that into a customer use case. You mentioned the movie that broke the internet a few weeks ago.
Yes.
This is a great application.
Yeah.
That company has a sustained need for bandwidth consumption, for network services. They are likely doing movie manipulation. They are sending edits back and forth between their primary locations. They're having to support the day-to-day business applications of email and web. You name it, right? However, when they have a major movie release, they have an increase in workload that is necessary to support ticket sales or perhaps the data transmission of a final movie to their production house. What these capabilities will allow them to do, dynamic capacity, let's say that customer has a traditional or day-to-day need for a gig of network connectivity. Dynamic capacity will allow them to schedule in advance. And let's say next Wednesday, they know they're doing this release and they want to schedule it for 72 hours. They could go in there and schedule the event so the network will automatically update next Wednesday, that release, automatically upgrade to increase the capacity to either 2 or 3 gigs to support that incremental bandwidth utilization. That will then dial it back down once the event is over, so that they are billed for the day-to-day utilization and then the incremental need that they had for the distribution, either of the ticket sales or of the content.
Good. Okay.
That event is actually uniquely assignable as well, so that they could assign the cost to that specific movie release, and then they can gauge that over time to see how much capacity they used, what their cost of the launch was, and make the alignment of their IT resources with the business purpose of the movie launch much more in sync.
Got it. Okay. Well, obviously, I guess if you're scheduling or I guess planning for something like that to happen, obviously you can kind of plan ahead of time. But it does seem like what you guys are offering too offers that kind of almost near real-time ability to kind of react to what's happening in that network too, like you mentioned earlier. And obviously, it does seem like analytics is a big part of that. I mean, big data analytics is a huge topic. I know in the telecom space, that's an ongoing thing, and obviously operators are getting more and more involved in trying to find out what's happening in their networks in real time. Because again, in the past, they've always been able to kind of know, hey, around 5 o'clock, we're going to get a lot more people calling because they're heading home from work or whatever it is, and then kind of schedule for that. But now it does seem like there are these random spikes in the network that happen for who knows what reason, and it seems like that's kind of what the need seems to be going forward. Is people have to almost be able to react quicker to these kind of these loads on the network now. It seems like that's kind of what you guys are bringing to the table as well, is the ability to react to that. But also, I'm guessing there's an automation layer as well that needs to be kind of there, because if you've got to wait for somebody to kind of make a decision on this, it's almost too late at that point. You almost have the program in place to kind of handle what's going to happen potentially in the network too.
That is spot on. Yeah. So we, as we first brought this to market, we enabled the on-demand capability, which did require a human interaction.
Yeah.
Someone to understand what's going on and log into a portal and make a decision to increase capacity or dial it back down. Your notion of the advanced analytics triggered event brought us to a patented capability that we have today, which is the analytics-based solution. And so let's use that same movie release. And the IT director didn't go in and increase proactively or schedule in advance, but they did have settings that were in the network that said, pick a threshold at 70% utilization or at 65%. It's fully personalizable to the user. But at 70% utilization, I wanted to automatically dial up my capacity to 2 times my original amount or 3 times. That capability is available with dynamic capacity. And so it's leveraging the advanced analytics that are built into enhanced management. So when you couple those two things together, those two services together, you get the best of both worlds. What's really cool about that is oftentimes the user doesn't know how much capacity they need.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
To preset it at 2 times or 3 times, you may not need 3 gigs, right? If your day-to-day is a gig, you may only need 2 gigs. You can set it and allow the network to decide. And so the network will look at what are the personalized settings in dynamic capacity that you set that utilization threshold. It'll look at the actual utilization going on at the moment, and then it'll decide how much capacity is needed, automatically updating it, increasing the capacity, and doing so without service interruption.
I mean, I guess are the automation processes involved in this? I mean, are they kind of up to enough speed? I mean, are they robust enough, I guess, to really handle that real time or at least near real time needs for these deployments? Because it does seem like that's still, at least when I talk to a lot of operators when it comes to maybe more on the traditional, their deployments of SDN and NFV, they're always a little worried about the automation because again, they're kind of have this legacy mindset of wanting to be in control of what's happening out there, and they don't want to turn it over to computers, But I guess, are you guys finding that these platforms are robust enough to handle what's being called for? Because it does seem like it's a growing demand, and this stuff is not going away. I'm guessing you're seeing enough robustness there from these systems.
We are, yeah, absolutely. We're seeing so as we initially embarked on this journey, a lot of the conversation, the telecom has a vast history of how can we automate the manual and make it still less manual. We approached it actually of how do we really eliminate the human hands from the network altogether. And so when you do that, you not only speed up service delivery, but you improve the accuracy by which services are delivered. And yeah, I mean, when we're talking about dialing up capacity or dialing it back down, those changes, it's not a mail slot service. And I would define mail slot as a nice user interface that drops a service order on the desk of somebody within the service provider. It's full automation into and through the network. And so those changes are done within seconds. You touched upon another interesting aspect, and that is the confidence in the systems, the confidence in the process for automation to work.
Yeah.
And so one of the capabilities that we've also employed with this is our customers told us, look, we want to know in advance what's going on. I want to know when an event is taking place, and I want to know what that event's going to cost me, both before and after. And so that notification is available and is provided with every transaction. So there's an audit trail of who logged in, who made the request, who authorized it, and it's fully auditable and reportable on the backside.
Yeah, makes sense. I think it's like I said. I mean, the companies I talk to, that is, maybe the ones who are a little more progressive or aggressive in terms of their move towards virtualization or SDN. They seem like a little more open to kind of allowing the computers to run what's going on out there. But it does seem like that's still, again, that's kind of one of those challenges, because it's again, at least in the telecom space, it's a legacy mindset there. And I'm sure the companies you deal with, the ones that are probably more IT centric, obviously are more comfortable with the situation, or say, hey, yeah, we deal with that all the time. No big deal. Let the computers do what they got to do. But I'm guessing you're seeing, again, like you said, some of the telecom guys perhaps maybe a little more convincing. It's probably still on the cards for those guys when it comes to letting them kind of turn stuff over to run by someone besides a person out there at a desk, I'm guessing.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And I guess maybe looking forward a little bit on this. I mean, do you see any certain challenges when it comes to the continued advancements of using SDN, both in your own operations, but also, broader deployments across the telecom space? Because again, as I was discussing here, I mean, it is there. Obviously, it brings a lot of advances, a lot of optimization, a lot of efficiencies to the network. But it still seems like, from a lot of companies I talk to, and a lot of organizations I talk to, there's still, standards issues and interoperability issues and things that are still kind of being worked out behind the scenes in terms of making sure this all kind of plays together nicely, both between companies, but also, but kind of between different technologies too. I guess as you look at the market, what's your view of how that's progressing and advancing at this point?
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? So a traditional service provider, the product development lifecycle is a lot longer.
Yeah.
Than, as we enter the software space, expectations are that you accelerate that development and delivery to the marketplace. So that's going to be required. For this to really take hold across networks, there's no service provider that owns and operates 100% of the facilities across an entire network. And so the open standards are going to be a necessity to provide the capabilities across networks, between networks. And when I say that, it's beyond just the technical interconnection. There are operational standards that are going to have to be defined. And I know like the Metro Ethernet Forum is working on to define the standards through their LSO initiative. That's a requirement. And for this to really be proliferated across networks, that's going to have to take place. But that's not going to slow down each service provider's own development and level 3's extension of these capabilities across the network and across the globe.
Got it. And obviously, I mean, what you guys are bringing to the table too. I mean, obviously, it seems like that. Obviously, the backhaul and the interconnection needs are only growing, and so I'm guessing for you guys, it's going to be a lot of work. I mean, a lot of business, a lot of working with these operators to make sure that it's all kind of is smooth, and again, trying to work with the different vendors out there, because operators have a lot of different vendors they work with, and so I'm sure again, it's a lot of work ahead for you guys in this space as well going forward.
That's right. Yeah. So when you talk to the equipment manufacturers, a lot of those folks are solving for interoperability of their own devices across the OSI stack. The challenge of the service provider is to not only work within those confines, but also between the varying business models that service providers have across the globe, not just North America, but how service providers interoperate in EMEA or APAC may be different than North America. So you just need to work towards standards and work tightly with those partners to provide service consistency. Customers expect network experience, and if you're going to provide that, you have to provide consistency of services across networks.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously something that telecom operators have a bit of a history in, trying to provide a certain service level. And that's always been kind of their end game, is the fact that they have a consistent level of service, whether you 5 nines or whatever you want to use. But yeah, I mean, and that seems to always be kind of the challenge, is kind of turning over that model that they're used to something new. But maintaining that service level seems like the big challenge, and maybe it's more of a challenge of just trying to convince these operators that they can do this while still using software. But that does seem like that's kind of always kind of the trick with telecom, is the fact that they do have certain expectations. People expect when they pick up their phone that it's going to work a certain way, and if it doesn't, then that generates calls to the customer care, and that's a whole different service issue for those guys there. But that seems like that's going to be a challenge, is just trying to convince everybody that, hey, this is the way to go going forward, and this will all work. And And obviously, a lot of work still needs to be done in that, making sure it's all solid. But it seems like it's at least going in that direction. I know a lot of operators are looking at that too. So
that's right.
A lot of work going there.
That's right. Yeah, and it's not just on the service assurance side; it's on the service delivery and even the contracting process as well. So as you get nailed down, the end-to-end life cycle of the customer is, I think, over the next or the near future, it's going to be changed pretty considerably.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. A lot of companies I talk to, the next few years, are going to see a lot of change. It seems like, at least in the way telecom networks are structured and kind of how they're built out going forward. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of talk, at least in wireless, about 5G and the Internet of Things and all these different things that are going to really impact how the networks are being used. And obviously, that traffic's got to go somewhere, and you have to be able to dynamically kind of monitor your usage needs and your demand needs. And so that's going to be a big part of all this going forward. I mean, it's a lot happening seems like a very short period of time, but it'll be fun, at least for us to cover. I'm sure if you guys work on the inside, probably a lot of lost weekends, but hey, that's just part of the game, right?
It's a lot of fun. Changing an industry.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely what's happening out there. But that sounds good. Well, hey, Adam, definitely appreciate the insight on this today. Obviously, it's good to kind of get some insight from a company we don't normally deal with a lot here. I mean, obviously, we follow level 3 quite a bit from the kind of the infrastructure backhaul point of view. Obviously, network interconnect is a big part of the network too. But good to get some insight from you guys, kind of on the virtualization space too. We definitely appreciate the insight on that today. Thanks so much for the time today.
Absolutely, thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Great, sounds good. Well, again, everyone, thanks for watching this week's show, and make sure to check us out again next week.
NFV SDN Reality Check with Dan Meyer is a production of RCR TV. To suggest show topics or to reach Dan, you can find him on email, dmeyer@rcrwireless.com, and on Twitter @Meyer_Dan. For more Dan, news on NFV SDN and everything wireless, find your way over to rcrwireless.com.